So today we are going to start the very first class of F1, right? FAB. FAB, or you can say F1. F1, normally this course actually composed by 3 different courses. First part we will discuss management, then some fundamental parts of finance, and then end of that part we will discuss HRM, human resource management. As well, this is FAB. The thing is, here there will be no sort of mathematical terms, right? We have discussed all the components clearly. So today we are going to start the very first chapter, that is organization. F1, this is chapter 1, organization. Organization. So today we actually try to focus what do you mean by organization, how the organization actually composed, and what are the differences between different kinds of organization. We actually focus on that. Clear? This is the very first chapter of this F1. Okay. First, we'll discuss what do you mean by organization. Ekhane, try to focus on my discussion. If the discussion is very much clear to you, then you can answer any kinds of question. After completing discussion, then you can go through the books. Clear? But first of all, focus the discussion. So, what do you mean by organization? What do you mean by this? These are the 3 wings of organization. Suppose goals. To be organization should have a specific objective or goals. As for example, if you look forward the school, its objective is to provide educational service to the students, right? If you think about the bank, they are providing financial service. So goals is there. So depend upon goals, you can divide different kinds of organizations there, right? Goals. So each individual organization should have some specific goals. Arrangement. We can say organization obviously a kind of social arrangement. Individually you can start any kinds of organization. If you work alone, that is not a kind of organization. But if there is a group, there is a kind of arrangement so that all the people or all collection of group, they can act together towards the achievement of a specific goal. That is a kind of social arrangement, and if their arrangement is just like this, then you can say this is a kind of organization. So to be organization, there should be a specific goals. There will be a social kinds of arrangement. Control performance. That means as a whole, what do we mean by control performance? If there is organization have a specific goal. To achieve the goal, you have to operate in a specific way, right? Your performance should be controlled. So as a whole, we can say organization is a social arrangement for controlled performance of collective goals. That means if your structure is such that a number of people can work together a specific performance to achieve some specific kinds of goal, then that is a kind of organization. Clear? Okay. তাও এখানে কিন্তু মুখস্থ করার কিছু নেই, তোমাকে লিখতে আসবে না what is organization, but you will be asked different kinds of questions depend upon this discussion. Clear? So discussion না focus করলে enough. Okay. মুছে ফেললাম, হ্যাঁ? So what do you mean by organization আমরা এখন বলতে পারবো না? Organization is a kind of social arrangement for controlled performance of collective goals. Clear? Now the thing is, we will discuss types of organization. Types or classification of organization. And we will discuss this. Initially, initially organization can be divided in two different groups. Public sector, private sector. Normally, there will be several types of organization, and we are surrounded by different kinds of organization in our life, and we have to depend on that. Depend upon the ownership. Ownership means who owns the business and who is operating the business. Depend upon that ownership, we can divide the organization into these two groups: public sector organization and private sector organization. Public sector organization, you can say this is government sector organization. This is government oriented organization. This is private oriented organization. So ownership is defined, right? So these are the organization which is controlled and owned by the government, right? That's why these are called government sector or public sector organization. And these are the organization which is owned and operated by the private sector, not the government. That's why these are private sector organization. Clear? Now the thing is, you put it down. Suppose, as for example, army, railway. আমাদের দেশের কথা যদি চিন্তা করি, if we think about our example, our country, railway, বাংলাদেশ বিমান, right? BIWTC, BRTC. These are government oriented organization, or we can say public sector organization. Why? Because these organization is operated and controlled by the government. And these organization, then WASA, PDB, Ojopadic, that is who are providing electricity supply to us, right? So we can say public sector organization are those organizations that actually established by the government, operated by the government, owned by the government, but through these government actually provide different types of public service. That's why these are the public sector organization. Clear? So normally these are non-profit oriented. We will discuss later on. These organizations actually, they set it to provide service to the normal people. Clear? Okay. So private sector is another kind of organization. Now the thing is, in some cases, in some specific circumstances, these two types of organization, public and private type of organization, can be amalgamated together. And then they build up a new kinds of organization, which is called PPP. Public-private partnership. Public-private partnership. PFI. Or you can say PFI, Private Finance Initiative. You have to remember these names. That is, these are the two different sectors of organization, depend upon the ownership. But if they join together, then they can start a new kinds of organization, which are called PPP, Public-Private Partnership, or PFI, Private Finance Initiative. Clear? So you can ask the question, if the private sector and public sector join together, what kinds of organization actually are there? That is PPP or PFI. Clear? Okay. Wait, I'm just clear. So up to this level, ORG public sector, private sector organization. So these are the two different types of organization. Now the thing is, this private sector organization can also subdivide it into two different groups. One is NFP, not for profit oriented, and another is profit seeking. Private sector organization also can be subdivided into NFP, not for profit. Not for profit, another is profit seeking organization. Private. Normally, we can say all the public sector organization is set up and situated and established to provide service to the normal people. That's why their main theme or they are depend on NFP based, that is not for profit oriented. That means we can say all kinds of government oriented organization is NFPs, not for profit. Clear? Even not for profit is in the case of private sector also. Private sector can be also subdivided into NFP and profit seeking organization. NFP. So we are saying public sector is also NFP. So what do you mean by these NFPs? Not for profit oriented organization, not for profit seekers. That means these are that kinds of organization whose main objective is not generating profit. NFP, we are saying these are not for profit, but it doesn't mean that they are not making profit. Suppose think about the BREC. Think about BREC. Think about ACCA. ACCA is also a not-for-profit organization. But it doesn't mean that they are not making profit. They are also generating profit. But the fact is, profit generating is not their ultimate focus. Their main objective is to provide service. In doing this, they can generate some specific portion of profit. Clear? But the fact is, in the case of NFP, these are that kinds of organizations who are not focusing to generate the profit in the first stage. Their main focus is to generate or provide service. Clear? Okay. Then, but here is an important question. The question is, we are saying these are not for profit oriented organizations. That means they are not focusing to generate profit. But the question is, to operate any kinds of business, you need financial aids, financial supports. So in this sort of organization, as they are providing free service, just kind of free service, clear? That's why the demand of their service is huge. Jehetu free service dicche, that's why their demand of the service is huge. And they are not at the same time, they are not focusing on financial aids or financial support, financial gain. That's why financial thing is their main constraint to provide different kinds of support. Suppose as for example, Khulna University. Suppose think an example, Khulna University, BA discipline, BBA. Each and every year, they admit 45 to 50 students. 45 to 50 students. So you may raise a question, why 45? Why not 100? Why not 100? Because varsity is also NFP, not for profit oriented organization. But it doesn't mean that they are not generating profit. They are also generating profit. But the thing is, because of government oriented varsities, their main focus is to generate service. What kinds of service? Educational service to the people. Financial things is one of the main constraint of those institutes to provide extra or additional service. Their financial structure is such that, say, they can provide service to 45 students, not 50, not 100. Clear? So the thing is, in the case of NFP, as they are not generating excess profit, that's why financial thing is one of the main constraint of them to provide their service. And because of the financial constraint, they have to provide service in a smaller segment, not larger segment. Clear? This is their boundaries. Okay. Then think about the profit seeking organization. আমরা এটা মুছে ফেলি মুছে ফেলি আমরা NFP লিখে রাখি just and think about the profit seeking organization. Profit seekers are those kinds of organization whose main objective is to generate profit and enhance the shareholders' wealth. Normally, whatever the things we actually start because of kinds of business or what we think about business. আমরা ব্যবসা সম্পর্কে চিন্তা করি কি? Business means generating profit. Right? So, profit seekers means those kinds of organization whose main objective is to generate profit or increase the shareholders' wealth as well. Clear? They are profit seekers organization. Now, the thing is, this profit seeking organization can also subdivide into two groups. Incorporated unincorporated. This profit seeking part of private, right? This profit seeking organization can be also subdivided into two different groups: incorporated and unincorporated. Now, but you are very much familiar with this sort of things. Limited liability company, have you heard the name? Limited liability. Incorporated means, in this case, these are profit seekers, right? If the business is incorporated, that means in those case of business, the owner's liability is limited. In the case of incorporated business, the owner's liability is separate, and you can say the owner and the business are separate entity in the case of incorporated business. These incorporated business are two kinds. One is PLC and another is LTD. One is public limited companies and another is limited liability companies. Clear? Incorporated means, we have already discussed, incorporated means there is ownership, business and owners are separate. Clear? Business and owners are separate. Business is a separate entity. PLC, public limited companies, that means those companies who can allot or issue shares in open market, in stock exchange. Anyone can buy that. That is public limited companies. Profit oriented, right? LTD, limited liability company. These are also profit seekers. These are also incorporated. But the thing is, they cannot allot or issue shares in open stock market. They can issue shares privately. They have lesser number of shares than in comparison to PLC. They have lesser number of shares and they can issue share privately to some extent. Difference ta bochha geche? Difference is PLC can issue share openly in the stock exchange, but private limited company, private entity, they can issue share to some private exchange. Suppose family oriented business. Bhaiyer 50% share ase, বোনদের 25% shares. Clear? So these are issuing share privately. Clear? So all are private oriented but incorporated. That means who are the shareholder? Their liability is only to amount of their shares, not more than that. In every cases, if the organization become bankrupt, shareholders will not be liable for the amount. The business itself will be liable for that. That's why these are incorporated business. One is PLC, another is LTD. Another is unincorporated business. Unincorporated business means here the business and owners are same. All the liability, assets owned by the business, that is also owned by the owners as well. There are two different kinds of business. One is sole tradership, another is partnership. Sole tradership, that means one individual is all in all. An individual who is investing all his money, all his investment, and he is responsible for all the profit and liability arises in that business. Sole tradership. Partnership. The difference is number of people, number of partners work together and start a business. But these are unincorporated. What does it mean? That means here any kinds of liability arises for the business. There is also liability for the partners or the sole traders as well. Clear? That means here business and sole trader or business and partners are same, are always same. Clear? Think about sole tradership. If any losses is there, or any liability is there, the sole trader himself is liable to provide the payments. But here, shareholder are not liable. Clear? Partners, any liability arises, partners individually or partners in a group are liable to meet up the payments. That's why these are unincorporated and these are incorporated. Clear? So these are the normal different kinds of business organization or organization that you can define, that you can classify. তাহলে আমরা কি বললাম? Initially, depend upon the ownership, business are two kinds. Public, private, structure টা খেয়াল রাখবা। Public sector owned by the government, controlled by the government. Private sector owned by the non-government or owned by private sector. This private sector are two kinds, NFP and profit seeking. NFP, that means those business organizations whose main objective is not generating profit. NFP doesn't mean that they are not generating profit. They are generating profit, but profit is not their ultimate focus. If profit is ultimate focus, those are profit seekers. And these profit seeking organizations are two kinds, incorporated, unincorporated. Incorporated, if the business and the ownership are the same, business and ownership are the same, those are unincorporated. Example, sole trader, partnership. But if the business and ownership is different, business itself is a kind of entity, in those cases there are two different kinds of organization, PLC, LTD. PLC means public limited companies, LTD limited liability company. The name is limited, public limited, limited liability. That means in both the cases liability is limited. That means any liability that is possessed by business, not the shareholders. And difference between these two, PLC can issue share openly to the stock exchange to the normal people, but LTD they can issue share privately. Their number of share is also lesser than in comparison to the PLC. Clear? So these are the normal different kinds of organization. Now we'll discuss some kinds of organization also, other kinds of organization. One is quangos. Quangos or quasi. লেখা দেখা যাচ্ছে মোটামুটি, আজকে ফুল মার্কার নিয়ে আসছে। quasi autonomous. Autonomous, you guys, I think you guys are familiar with this word autonomous. Mongla Port Authority, Chittagong Port Authority, Nirbachon Election Commission, right? So these are the different kinds of regulatory body. Regulatory body. Mongla Port is not controlled by government. Government is providing fund. Universities. University is not controlled by government. Government is providing fund, but university, he said, it has its own authority how we can operate it. Mongla Port Authority. Government is providing fund, but government is not directly controlled the Mongla Port. Mongla Port itself is a kind of authority. So these are called quasi or quasi-autonomous organization. That is organization where the government is providing fund, but government directly not control that. Government indirectly control those kinds of things. That's why they are quasi-autonomous. They have their own authority. Clear? This is another example. Then another example, another thing we will discuss, that is mutual and cooperatives. Both are same, just like the same. In the case of mutual and cooperatives, these are example of NFPs. First of all, both mutual and cooperatives are under NFP, that means not for profit oriented. That means both these kinds of organizations are not focusing generate profit. They are focusing something different. They are focusing providing service. Number one. Number two, in both the cases, members, the organization actually operated, controlled by the member and operated by the subscription provided by the members. In both the cases, the organization is operated and controlled, even providing service to the members. As for example, trade union. You heard the name trade union? It's a kind of trade union, right? Constructed by the labor forces, workers. They provide subscription, and using this subscription, they provide different kinds of service to the members, not the outsiders. Right? So, mutual and cooperatives. Cooperatives is just like the mutual. But the thing is, in the case of cooperatives, these are dealing with different kinds of tangible service. As for example, suppose there are number of suppliers, number of buyers who want to buy some specific things from India. India is providing a bulk discount. So if the number of people join together and then jointly provide an order, they can have the bulk discount option. Right? So here the members are joined together, they are providing subscription, and all the service controlled by this organization, controlled by the members, and this organization also provides service to the members as well. And these are also not for profit oriented. But in some case, it may generate some profit. The profit will be shared between the members, or the profit will be used to provide different kinds of service to the members. Clear? So this is different kinds of organization. These are also part of private sector organization. These are not public sector. These are private sector NFPs. So these are the different kinds of organization that you can have in your book. Now you can go through the book. Clear? Okay? Okay. Thank you. This is the end of this first chapter. খুব ছোট এখন আমারে বলো